I basically took the mentality of the wholesaler mindset. When I find an opportunity, I'm not pushing it to market right away. And then if there's a little bit less spread that I'm comfortable with buying it, I'll wholesale it. And if there's a little bit less spread than that, I'll just broker it off market. I know I can sell it for $5 million. I offer the guy $4 million. The reason being is because what I find is that today, because of how many phone calls people get today, broker and how many agents are just like constantly, it's like so funny. They're like, I'm just going to provide value to all these people. No one cares about a broker price opinion anymore.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Commercial Real Estate Blueprint Podcast. I'm super excited to have today's guest back on. I was telling him just before we started recording, I believe he was the first person who came onto my podcast prior to Jesse coming on. I think I did like 4 episodes, and I reached out. I was looking up, and I was just thinking, who's the most influential, who's got a big presence, who's got a big brand. And Henry has been grinding for, years and years and years. He's done an excellent job of growing his brand. He's very well known. When you think about commercial real estate, you think about a handful of people, and Henry's one of them. So I'm excited to welcome Henry Eisenstein back on the show. He's got, he's got his hands on all kinds of stuff. He's a commercial real estate broker. He's a commercial real estate coach. He's a commercial real estate investor. Thanks so much for coming back on the show, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. I'm happy to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really cool, honestly, because I remember watching a lot of your YouTube videos and like people who are on YouTube, you reach out to someone, you don't necessarily expect them to, you don't know what they're going to say. And I reached out to you, I was like, hey, you want to come on the podcast? You're like, absolutely. And I was like, oh, awesome. Thank you. And you're like, yeah, man, I started like you did, and you're just super humble. And I think that's so cool.
Yeah. Appreciate you a lot, man. I'm excited to dive in.
For sure. So for people who don't know much about you, give us a little bit of backstory and, tell us about what you do.
Sure. Quick 60 seconds. Started in the residential business about 11 years ago. I'm 31 today. Got into business when I was 20. Built it to over 100 transactions a year by the time I was 25, 26 years old. Started, mainly working with investors, actually helping them find dilapidated houses for fix and flips and rentals, and got into wholesaling on the side as well. And then one of my friends who was an investor of mine. We've done a lot of business together. We bought and sold tens of millions of dollars worth of property together. He referred me to a friend of his for my first ever commercial transaction. It was a 12-unit multifamily. Sold it about, 6 years ago. And I got hooked. I made $100,000, and it was about the same amount of work that it took me to do a $10,000 commission deal for residential. I was like, there's something to this game, and I need to figure it the heck out. And I got the bug for commercial, and I haven't looked back since. So I've been a part of over about $1 billion worth of real estate deals over the last 10 or so years, and got into consulting with a lot of agents. So I've worked with over 1,000 agents nationwide, helping them earn a couple extra $100,000 a year selling commercial real estate. And I'm also an investor. Portfolio is about $20 million. I'm in contract right now on another $7 or so million worth of deals. So constantly just looking to buy, sell, transact in any which way I can.
That's incredible. Yeah, that's incredible. I think, you've carved out an awesome niche for yourself in a sense of where if you look at a lot of these people and you look at a lot of coaching programs and just real estate in general, when it's talking about brokerage, they talk about get listings. But you kind of took the counter approach to that. I hear you say it a lot in your videos that you're more of a connector on off market deals. You connect buyers and sellers, but you're not really worrying about listing. I think that's super interesting, especially to hear you kind of glossed over, you've done over $1 billion. That's incredible, especially at your age. So that's so cool. So that's something I definitely want to dig into, because obviously one of the most important things about commercial real estate investing, especially if you're just getting into it or if you're transitioning from residential, is finding opportunities. And I feel like you're, a master at that. So what does your process look like? How are you finding these deals? And do you have anything that you think sets apart how you were able to do $1 billion in transactions up to this point?
Yeah, I think, one of the smart things that I'm grateful that I fell into, it wasn't my idea. It was just, I fell into it and it happened to work, was I basically took the mentality of the wholesaler mindset, from residential real estate and brought it to commercial on the brokerage end. And it just happened to work really freaking well. Which is essentially how to find good off-market direct-to-seller opportunities, right? Become very good at that. And then also match and build up a buyer's list of individuals that you could just go to once you find those deals. Instead of the residential agent mindset or the corporate-esque mindset for broker thinking, which is every property I find, I need to list it for sale and then hope and pray some, other agent happens to bring me a buyer, right? So that mentality, it wasn't like I thought of it and I was like, oh, this is going to be so cool and take all the credit. No, it was like, I think this worked really well in residential. Why don't I just do it for commercial? And it ended up being a massive opportunity and basically a way that no one else looks at the industry. Right? Because I'm also an investor myself. So I'm like, in residential, I would go up to a listing. I go to a listing appointment and say, hey, there's 3 ways we can sell your house. We could do a cash offer, we could list it for sale, or I could put it off to my off-market people. You let me know what you prefer to do, right? And they would choose. And then what I noticed was that, there'd be people who were interested in listing, and then be people who were interested in doing an off-market deal, and be people who were interested in doing an all-cash deal right away. Why on planet Earth do people all just try to shove everybody into one peg? Makes no sense, right? They don't all go in one place, right? And you can't treat every person the same way, even though I think the entire industry tries to shove everybody into the listing only method, which doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that, it allows us to capture substantially more deals and also dollars when we're working on these deals, because when I find an opportunity, I'm not pushing it to market right away. I'm the first person to take a look at it. So I think if it's a good opportunity, I'm the one who gets to buy it. And then if there's a little bit less spread that I'm comfortable with buying it, I'll wholesale it. And if there's a little bit less spread than that, I'll just broker it off market, right? So it's just having the open mindset of saying that, like, hey, if listing isn't the only way to sell it, which is a fact, right? How do I look at it from a 30,000 foot view and go, how else can I sell this property, making the seller happy, the buyer happy, and me a couple bucks if I can negotiate a good enough deal? That's all.
Yeah, that's so smart, because commercial real estate as a whole is so, it's changed a lot since I started, but at least when I started, which was about 8 years ago, it was very old school. Everybody was, older for the most part. I mean, there's still obviously exceptions of young people, but for the most part, it was a bunch of older guys, and, they were printing out these really clunky flyers and scanning things. It was just very old and dated. And so there was like a set way that people did things. Like, you have to do it this way. You have to do it that way. You have to do it this way. And, it sounds like what you did is basically you came in and said, no, you don't have to do it this way. And I'm curious, now that you're, obviously coming across a lot of opportunities, do you still kind of offer that 3-tiered approach of like, hey, I can list this? I know you say you don't really do listings, but do you ever offer listings? Do you out the gate offer that you'll buy it, and then do you also offer them like a cash deal or walk us through
so what we found works the best is I follow the following process. Okay, we find an off-market opportunity. Okay, once we get that, we make an offer. Okay, we work with a lot of investors, and a lot of people are like, well, what happens if I don't have somebody to make an offer on? That's okay. Why don't you underwrite the property, figure out roughly what it's worth, and instead of doing a broker price opinion, you just make them a verbal offer. I can probably get you an offer somewhere around this vicinity, is a verbal type of languaging you could use. Okay. And you just do it at roughly 10 or 20% below what you would give them as a, call it broker price opinion. Okay. I know I can sell it for $5 million. I offer the guy $4 million. Okay. The reason being is because what I find is that today, because of how many phone calls people get today, broker, and how many agents are just like constantly, it's like so funny. They're like, I'm just going to provide value to all these people. No one cares about a broker price opinion anymore. I don't care what you think my property's worth, because your opinion means nothing. I want to know what the buyer is going to pay me. That's what I care about as an investor. I don't care about a broker's opinion of my value. Most of the time, they're completely wrong anyways, right? What is a active investor in the market today willing to pay me for my property? I'm always interested to knowing. So if you want to provide me value, give me an offer. I might not be ready to sell it, but I want to know what someone's willing to pay me, right? So we provide them with an offer. Now it's verbal. Okay, you don't need to give it to them on a letter of intent or anything professionally written or LLCs and all that kind of nonsense. Just a verbal offer. I could probably get you an offer of around X value. Okay. If it's too low, they're going to give you the same nonsense, just like if you gave them a broker price opinion and they thought it was too low as well. Okay. It's going to be the same nonsense. But this way, it comes off differently. Okay. Because sometimes you get them where they go, oh, actually, I won't take X, but I'll take Y. Right. So you can already get somebody who might have said, I want 6 million down to 5 million. And it's all you did was, instead of a broker price opinion, just labeled the word offer. I can probably get you X versus this is what I think your property's worth. Right. Found we can get people down. You'd be surprised how much money we get people down in price just because of the languaging we use when we present a value. Okay. Then based off of their countered value, we then we have now the decision of, instead of them having the decision, we have the decision. Okay. Mm-hmm. So instead of I say, hey, what would you prefer to do? Cash offer, off market brokering or listing it? I decide which one makes sense. Okay. Because I know I'm always going to make the right decision. Now it's also up to them to agree, quote unquote, but I get to point it in the right direction. I get to steer the ship, right? So if I think it makes sense for me to buy it, I have that decision. If I think it makes sense to wholesale it, I can do it. If I think it makes sense for me to go off-market brokering, which is the majority of the time, we can do that as well. And then if I go, okay, probably too high to do any one of those, right? I might be able to still put it in front of a few of my clients as an off-market broker just to be sure. But if I still think it's a little high, I would tell my team right away, hey, just pitch them a listing. And then it's a simple line of like, hey, based on the price point that you're looking for, would you be totally against having my team and I market the property for sale? That's it.
Yeah.
And this is what allows us to convert the majority of deals that should be converted on. And then avoid wasting way too much time on the people who want too much money, right? I'm never going to be the guy on LoopNet ever, or Crexy ever. You'll never see my name attached to a listing ever, because I don't even want the phone calls, because 99% of the time they're not going to sell anyway.
Yeah, that's such a good point, and that's such a good process. It's basically just like people talk about getting as many at bats as possible, and I feel like it's a way to get several different options. So instead of just, like you said, pigeonholing yourself into one option, you're giving them multiple different options, which obviously massively increases your chances of actually doing a deal.
Exactly.
That's something that we talked about. Jesse and I were kind of going over our goals for this year and planning and stuff, and I was like, we don't necessarily have to do more deals, but a lot of times you find yourself negotiating on commission, and it's like, we'll do 1% or 2% or whatever. It's like, if you just push a little harder and stand your ground a little more, you could do the same amount of deals and still make 20, 30, 40% more, just because you ask for a little bit more commission
or multiples more.
Yeah, 100%. So when you guys do list, though, that's what I was going to ask. I know you're a big team guy. I think last time we spoke, which was, gosh, at this point, I don't even know, 2 years maybe, or a year and a half, something like that. It's been a while. You said you were working on massively expanding your brokerage, and you were going to have teams, people working for you all across the country. Correct. So is that what you do now when you get a listing opportunity? You just have them handle everything, you don't touch it?
Yeah, I pass everything on to my team majority of the time, unless I have a buyer who's ready to take down a deal that I represented on my own.
That's awesome. And how does that team look now? I know, but last time you think you had just gotten one, I can't remember, but I feel like it was only one group of people you had at the point. But it seems like
I
you've
think
grown
we were
tremendously
at
since then.
Last time, but yeah, we're about just under 40 today.
That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah. And we're still looking to grow. I mean, like my niche specifically is that I partner with agents all across the country to open up new markets. I try to take on people who are doing $100,000+ a year, who are looking to scale up. We basically bring them in as a team leader, and then we try to build the team within, underneath that individual, right? Where, basically we partner on a team together, or we scale through that individual. We've done that a number of times, and, the model works very well, where that individual can basically become a market center.
That's incredible. Yeah. So walk us through the actual deal finding process of where you start, and then, how do you get from somebody just starting, having no experience, not knowing anything, where do they go to find a deal? How do they start that process to get to an actual closing table?
Yeah. So I think people try to overcomplicate how simplistic this industry is, like incredibly overcomplicated. You need think about it from step one. You need a place to export leads, right? Property owners, so that you can then reach out to them. So if we just think about that as a specific one piece of criteria, where can I export property owner information, right? So that I can reach out to them later across any mode of communication, whether that's a phone call, a text message, an email, or a letter. Okay. Well, there's only so many platforms out there. You got CoStar, Crexy, Reonomy. You can argue PropStream and a couple other arguably secondary type of places, Terracotta and all these other places that are, software that are coming out that can help you find this property information. Okay, fine. I don't care which one it is. My team does all of them. Okay. We didn't choose one. We do all of them. Okay. We then export as much property data as we possibly can, as often as we can. And we reach out to those individuals via every mode of communication possible. We reach out to them on a cold call. We reach out to them via cold text message. We reach out to them via cold email. And we blast the crap out of these individuals until we can get a response to know who's open to the idea of selling, who's not, who's the correct owner, who's not, and we vet this information as quickly as we possibly can, so we can dwindle it down to then the people who are saying, I'm open to the idea of selling, and I am the correct owner, and I am open to the idea of selling. And then this is where we go through that same process like we outlined before, right? So again, very basic, choose a platform. Most likely, I'm going to tell you, you probably should eventually get all of them, right? But if you look at each individual platform individually, it just kind of silo them off. CoStar's contact information sucks. Yeah. It's fantastic for property data, right? It's good for, regular property data. I think it's better than Crexy and Reonomy, right? When it comes to property data and information there, but when in reporting, but it's not good as the contact information sucks, right? And then when you go to Crexi as an example, I think that the property data is probably a little bit better than Reonomy, slightly, right? But the contact information is not as good, right? Like it's maybe, like a B minus, C plus on contact information when CoStar is a D, right? And then the property data is probably the same thing, like a C plus, B minus property data, right? And then Reonomy is in the opposite extremes of CoStar. It's got better contact information, probably a B plus on contact information, and then it's got a D when it comes to property detail. Right. And you use each software for what you need. Right. So if you want contact records, I'd probably go to Reonomy, even though I don't care if Reonomy hears me say this. I hate the company. Right. I think the management sucks. And the only reason why I continue to use the platform is because they have some good contact information. So I'll continue to use them and pay my money to do so. Right. But, at the end of the day, it's like I only use it because I like the contact information. That's it.
And so how are you compiling all this information? That's a lot of information. I feel like, especially for me, like that could be overwhelming. And then it turns into I have 10 lists and I'm like, okay, which list am I even calling on? Like, how are you organizing all of that into like a CRM?
Sure. So what we do is that no lead list, okay, because there's two different types of lists. There's a lead list and a prospecting list, okay? A prospecting list is something from one of these softwares I just mentioned that you've exported and then you need to then prospect that list, okay? You don't know if it's the correct contact information. You don't know if they want to sell. People who go in our CRM system are leads only, okay? They do not go on the CRM until they are confirmed leads. They are the correct property owner. I don't care if they're ready to sell now or in 10 years from now, but only the correct property owner information goes in our CRM system, okay? It's a very different list. So what we'll do is that the lead lists are specifically exported when an individual is looking to prospect something, right? So right now, as an example, I would tell any person who's watching this, and I would say, hey, what's 1 or 2 or 3 buyers that you have right now? I'd say probably minimum 3 buyers that are all looking for the same exact product right now, right? Where is it? And what is it, right? You pull that list, right? You're based out of what location, as an example? North Carolina?
Yep.
Okay. So what asset class do you like the most?
Industrial.
Okay, great. So you choose one area in North Carolina, 1 county or 2 counties or 3 counties, I don't care. You have one specific, you have your 3 specific buyer minimum that are all looking for the same type of product in a geographic location, okay? And by the way, if you're the investor, it works the same exact way. Whatever you're looking for, you pull that list, okay? That becomes your prospecting list. You hit the list once. You take your leads out, people you've spoken to, you confirm proper contact information, you put that into your CRM system, and then you call the list a second time, you do the same thing. And then you do it a third time, you do the same thing, okay? Our team members know to call a list 6 times before we give up on a list. Because the cool thing about it is when you have them in a dialer, you call them, and any person who picks up the phone, you're supposed to delete the contact information when you're done, right? You call them, if it's the wrong number, you delete it. If it's the right number, you pull the information out, you put it in your CRM, and then you delete it. Because then you can cold call that list again through the dialer, and it's a brand new list because you didn't talk to them yet.
Yeah. I think that's super good because that's something that I messed up on in my first year of commercial real estate. What you're saying specifically, I would take all the leads, the prospects, not even leads, and put them into my CRM. And then I'd be like, well, I don't remember if this number was right. I don't remember if this guy even would sell. Like,
I made that mistake too.
No. Like,
you learn from
have
it.
Prospect and you have leads. And then, yeah, exactly. And so we purged our CRM, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, something like that, to get rid of all the other people that aren't legit. I want to have people in my CRM that are legit, that do want to sell. We've sold for them in the past, so I can keep up with the legit people that are actually doing things. We learned something from you that I don't know that I've really heard a lot of other people mention, but specific time for you calling people that are buyers in your market, like going and finding more buyers. I want you to kind of talk about that. Yes, it's data and stuff, but kind of your process for calling buyers.
Okay. So just like I said, don't overcomplicate the process for sellers. It's the same thing for buyers. All you're doing is the exact opposite type of list for a buyer. Let me explain. So when you're calling for a seller, you're thinking about it from the lens of like, okay, well, I probably shouldn't call somebody who's bought anything who hasn't, where the property hasn't sold recently. Because if they sold it, let's say that property sold 2 years ago, the odds of them, selling again is rare, right? So you probably want to call somebody who hasn't sold in 10 plus years, right? You probably want to call somebody who also owns very little other real estate, right? Because if they own a lot of real estate, they own 40 properties, what's the odds of them selling their property? Very low, right? Because they're probably acquiring more. Right. So if you're calling on buyers, you just want to look for the exact opposite, right? So what we do is we flip it on its head. We say, okay, well, I want to look at all the properties that have recently sold in the last 12 to 24 months. Everything that is sold. So I want to see who bought recently. Because if they haven't bought something in the last 12 months, right, or the last 2 years, right, they're, what's the odds of them buying this year? Probably not high. right? So I want to find people who are active today, which can only be proven because they've recently bought something. That's number one. Number two, they also own several properties. So instead of them owning nothing or one property, right, I want to find somebody who owns minimum 3 or 5 properties, right, in that geographic market of that same asset class. And the cool thing is that CoStar can do that, Crexi can do that, Reonomy can do that, right? Where Reonomy, as an example, you can go to an owner's tab and sort by asset class and when they, most recent acquisitions date. So I can literally see who bought something in the last 12 months, literally by the date, and how much real estate they own. And I can call up the top 20 people on the, on the local buyers list. I mean, imagine having a list that is just however many dozen people who bought recently in the last 2 years, who own 5 or more properties of all the exact same asset class in this geographic market. You just get to call all of them, and more likely than not, at least a few of them are going to be interested in buying another property.
Yeah,
right?
That's so good. That's so good. We've done that several times, and also we need to probably do it some more. But you're right. I mean, it just works. You find people that are active in the market, and they're looking for
this
more.
Works for any asset class, any geographic location, all across the world. It does not matter.
Yeah. I wanted to go back to kind of the conversations you're having on the buy side. So if you're cold calling somebody, you got somebody that wants to sell, you can't agree on a price, and you're kind of trying to determine between wholesale versus off-market brokering. What does that conversation look like? Because I just don't want people to get confuse the seller on saying, okay, I'm a buyer or am I a broker? And I don't want to confuse the seller. How do you guys kind of keep that clear?
So what I would always recommend that people do is err on the side of brokering, right? So always claim that you're the broker, right? Okay. Always mention that you're the broker, because it's much easier to pivot to I'll just buy the deal, right? Versus going backwards, right? Mm-hmm. It's much harder to go from telling a seller saying, I'm going to buy your property, and I go, no, I'm not. I'm going to broker it. Okay. Yeah. Right. So start as a broker and continue as a broker until it changes, which I'm going to be honest with everyone here is that.
Hey guys, it's Graham here. I need to tell you about something coming up in January 2026. While most investors are making New Year's resolutions, a group of serious commercial real estate investors will be doing something different in Orlando. They'll be positioning themselves for the biggest opportunity we've seen in a while. 2026 is when preparation meets opportunity. The market is resetting and creative financing is opening doors that were not open before. And investors with the right education will have their pick of deals in 2026. And that's what's happening at Commercial Academy Live in Orlando, January 30th through February 1st. 3 days with experienced operators who have actually done deals, capital partners looking to deploy money, and a community that becomes your competitive advantage. Are you ready to start 2026 with the momentum? I would not miss this event if I was you. Text Blueprint to 888-653-1199. Again, that's Blueprint to 888-653-1199. This will get you an exclusive discount to the Commercial Academy Live in Orlando. And remember, it only takes one deal, one time to change your life forever.
The majority of deals, okay, don't have enough spread to wholesale. The majority of deals do not have enough spread, right? Especially as an example, like California and now New Jersey, where New Jersey, my transfer taxes, I just sold a building for $2.3 million. Just my transfer taxes alone was $73,000, okay?
Jeez.
It's ridiculous. California, they're imposing 5%, I think it's called mansion tax out there, right? 5% mansion tax on properties over $5 million. You sell a deal for $6 million, $300,000 just goes to the state of California, right? It's absolute insanity, right? So the odds of the deal making that much sense where there's so much spread, because think about it. If you're buying and then reselling, you buy a deal for $6 million, then sell it for 6.5. You're like, oh, there's, what is it, 14% in spread, right? Like half, $500,000 on 600, whatever that comes to. Or 9% in spread, right? There's 9% spread. I don't want to make a 6% fee. I want to go for the full 9%, right? Whatever that is, right? And you're like, do you not understand? You're going to have to double end the deal. So you're going to have closing costs on both sides. You're going to end up making less than you would have made if you just brokered the deal, right? And you risk everything to try to do it, because you have a lot more risk. Like when I wholesale, I put up everyone's like, oh, what do I do if I wholesale if I don't have any money? What are you expecting? You have to put up the deposit. I have to pay for the inspections. I have to do all those things. I pay for my attorney fee, all that kind of stuff, right? Like as an example, I just did a wholesale deal. I had $100,000 deposit out. Right? This isn't residential land where you put a $500 deposit and everyone's fine, right? $50K deposit minimums most of the time. The cheapest one I did was $10,000, but it was a $190,000 property that we were trying to wholesale for $300. Okay, but it's most of the time it's $50,000, right? Yeah. And then you have to close, because most title companies won't allow you to double close. I mean, won't allow you to do simultaneous closings using their own funds. What happens with me a lot of the times is that if I'm selling it to my close friends who know that I'm wholesaling it and that I've sold them other stuff before, and I just say to them like, hey, like I have a partner on the deal, I'm wholesaling the property, it was the only way for it to work. They don't care if I'm wholesaling it and I make money. Okay. Now they have a problem if I'm trying to make $3 million on a $4 million deal, which I'm not here to be, I'm not greedy, right? But most of the time, it's like if I'm wholesaling it, a large 80+% of the time I'm wholesaling it, I'm able to do simultaneous closings because I'm selling it to my friends, right?
Yeah. I want to clarify something. When you talk about starting when you're cold calling, you start as a broker, I assume, and I'm pretty sure you just mean you're calling and saying something along the lines, because I've seen this in your video, I have a client.
Correct.
Because I've seen it. I'm curious how you pivot, because it's very difficult. I've had this happen before where I'll call, and if you're just calling as a broker, then they might say, and you're trying to get a price out of them, they might say, well, what do you think it's worth? And then all of a sudden,
always I always like to mention the client.
Okay.
The client would probably be around X because it's not your valuation.
Yeah, that's a good point. So you say the client might be it. So how do you, like, let's say you make an offer, doesn't work out, all this stuff, they want way more money. How do you pivot to, actually, we're going to list it for what you asked for, or close to what you asked for? Because then a lot of times I've had, people say, well, you're just trying to lowball me. You were just trying to lowball me, but I can.
Yeah. So this is why languaging is so crucial. Okay. Because anytime that you say, I believe your property's worth X, you will immediately put yourself into a position that can most of the time not have bear a lot of financial fruit. Okay. Because you're hoping and praying that your number and their number are relatively close and they don't hate your guts. Okay. This is why when I mention saying I can probably get you X from X buyer, right? Or my buyer can probably offer you X. I'm not saying that that's a good or a bad number, right? That's not Henry. That's not me, the broker. I'm here to represent you, Mr. or Mr. Seller, right? So like I can say, I didn't say, when they go like, that price is ridiculous. I agree with you. I said the same thing to my client, right? Because it's not me mentioning that that's my price. They wanted to offer it, right? So it puts you in a much better position, right, at the quote table when you're presenting numbers, right? Because it's like as an example, if you're sitting at a table, seller's across from you and the buyer's next to you, whose side do you look like you're on? You look like you're on the buyer's side, right? And it would be the vice versa. If you're sitting next to the seller across a table from your buyer, it looks like you're on the seller's side. But when you constantly are saying my client would offer you X, right, or the client, my client, the seller wanted to counter you at Y. Right? It puts you in the center of the table. It puts you at the head of the table saying, I'm not on their side. I'm not suggesting what their number is correct to market. It's just what they wanted to come back at. So it puts you in a position where you can be like, I agree with you. I said the same thing, right? I'm on your side. And you could say the same thing to both buyer or seller because it doesn't position you on one side or the other.
Yeah. What do you say to brokers? I'm just curious, because we have people on the podcast and they're brokers who are like, I would never buy a deal in my own market. Or I would never buy something in
the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting, but because a lot of people will say that they'll say like, I'll never sell something in my market, or I won't compete. I'll buy assets in a different asset class because otherwise I'm just competing with my buyers and all this stuff.
That makes no sense at all. That makes absolutely no sense at all. I only buy properties in areas in which I understand. That doesn't make it. What do you claim? I only buy properties in areas that I don't understand. Mm-hmm. That is the weirdest logic I've ever heard in my life. I'm not this is not a competition, right? Like if I find a deal and I'm going to make $10 million by buying it, by putting up $500,000 as an example, it's a 47 IRR and a 3x multiple, right, over a period of time. I would be absolutely stupid if I had the money in my checking account not to buy the deal, right? It has nothing to do with competing or not competing. There's enough real estate to go around. If you buy one deal or two deals a year versus your clients you sell off 20, who cares, right? It's hilarious. I even go to my clients and I sell them deals and I say, hey, do you want to invest in my deal?
Yeah.
Right? And they'll throw me 100, 200, 300, 500 grand.
Yeah.
It's the nuts, the most, it's like, let me just say this for a second, because this bothers me. It's like, why on planet Earth would you even get in the real estate business in the first place?
100%.
Oh, I sell real estate only in the state of New Jersey, so I'm only going to buy properties in Idaho because I don't want to compete with my clients.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
No, I agree.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue too to how you take down your deals. Like it sounds like you're JVing, you're probably doing some kind of syndication. Talk us through what an average Henry Eisenstein deal looks like.
Yeah, so you're saying for acquisition?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so again, let's just say we underwrite a deal, and we based on our underwriting, we think this deal makes enough sense where we personally, me and my investment group should take it down, right? Because what I like to do is that I have basically 2 or 3 different guys that I partner with on deals. Okay. Listen, I live in Miami. My life's very good. I run a successful brokerage sales team, and I run a very successful consulting business. I don't have time to be hands-on on every single property, like physically location. Because a lot of what I buy is in New Jersey. Like I know New Jersey markets like the back of my hand. It doesn't necessarily mean that I need to live 3 minutes from the property. Right. So when I buy properties, I buy them with partners who are local and who have great management experience where they can manage the deal. And I bring capital to the table and I bring the deal to the table. Okay. So as an example, recently, right, I would, or on every deal. Okay. But I'll give you an example of one deal that I'm in contract on right now as an example in a moment. But I'll take a deal which I think makes sense and I'll bring it to my investment group. Right. So one of these guys and I'm like, hey, I want to partner with you. What do you think about this deal? Okay. I get their quick feedback. So before I even go to my VIP buyers that I would bring deals to have them buy it straight up. Okay. I go to my partners and I say, hey, what do you think about it? Because look, I know I have a pretty good understanding of the market, but I still love to bring deals because we all, as real estate agents, we are innately optimistic people, right? The problem is when every person in the partnership is optimistic, you end up making stupid decisions. You always need a pessimist. You always need a more conservative guy. I'm typically the more conservative guy for most of the groups that I work with and my brokers, like especially on my team. I'm probably the most conservative guy in my sales team on the sales team, right? But for the investment group, my partners, sometimes I'm a little bit too optimistic, and I like this like a gut check for these deals, right? So I get gut checked real quick of like, what do you think about this deal? I bring it out to these partners and say like, hey, what do you think? They quickly gut check the deal, and I want to make sure that I'm not being too foo-foo crazy nuts on the pricing, okay? When they like the deal now, we'll immediately pivot to let's make an offer and just see what happens, right? So like, how I mentioned like making a verbal offer originally? What we'll do is we'll now put something in writing. Now, look, I also protect all of my agents. So my agents find a lot of these deals, right? So I will make sure that they're compensated. And we still will make 6% commission on these deals, okay? Where like my partners know I have agents who need to be paid and like I'm never going to take $1 out of their pocket, right? So we don't just get it at a discounted rate. We make an offer, and if it does get accepted at that point, I also know that a large percentage of my responsibility beyond bringing the deal is bringing capital, right? So as an example, I'm doing a deal right now where I liked it so much, I actually decided to agree to an offer that I had received in the past to sell one of my other buildings to do a 1031 exchange so I could put even more cash into a deal because I liked it so much, plus cash out of pocket. So like I'm going to be putting, close to $500,000 of my own money in this deal. I have a small little building I wanted to sell off so I can bring it into something bigger, but I liked it enough to do that. Right. So however, most of the time it's really just me putting 100, 200, 300 grand. And then my partner's also sometimes putting up, a little bit of money or half the money or a portion of the money, depending on how many partners are in the GP side of the deal. Right. And that's really the game. I mean, a lot of what we look for is around 25 IRR pluses, right? Like a very conservative 25 IRRs, 2x plus multiples, very clean, simple stuff, right? Like I don't get busy with, development. I don't get busy with, all the crazy, weird, funky type of stuff. I want it to be a clean warehouse. I want it to be a clean apartment building. I want it to be a clean shopping center, right? Coming in, good price per square foot, renovating what needs to be renovated and upping the rents where necessary. And that's the game, right? It's like anytime you try to get really complicated, I think it's unnecessary risk that you're taking to quote unquote look a certain way, right? I'd rather just make $500,000 on a broker fee or 200 grand or 50 grand on a broker fee versus invest a bunch of money and then be wrong, right? And have way too much money out of pocket, right?
100%.
So.
You've touched on a principle that over and over again, kind of like in different ways with everything we've talked about so far that I personally love. And me and Jesse have a team. So we talk about some of our core values. One of them we've certainly determined is absolutely going to be one is simplicity. Yep. And you said it over and over again. People overcomplicate it. They overcomplicate the buy side. They overcomplicate the commercial real estate acquisition side. They overcomplicate everything. You said, I like it to be simple. Simple. You've said it a bunch of times. I love it. And I'm reading the book. I'm sure you read it, Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. And he's like one of the most successful Navy SEALs ever. And one of his big things too is like simplicity. And he's talking about battle plans and stuff. And he's like, these people would come to these ridiculous plans that were so complicated. And it's like, if you can't repeat the plan very quickly to your friend, then it's too complicated. I feel like that's just such a good principle in business that I've learned over and over again. And like early on, we would try to do too many things at one time and
simple scales, complexity kills.
100%.
Right.
100%.
And whenever, and most of the time, the complexity comes from not knowing better, right? 100%. And thinking that you were like, it's a little bit outside the buy box, but there's so much upside that maybe it makes sense. And then what happens is like, that's your too optimistic foo-foo mindset going nuts, thinking that it makes sense to take the unnecessary risk. And then the person who hypothetically knows better comes into the deal and be like, don't do that. Just make it like, I'm like, most of the time when I tell my brokers like, oh, we should buy this and do this and do this and do this. I'm like, no, just make $100,000 and move to the next deal. Right? That's most of the time the best answer, to be honest with you. Because most of the time they're like trying to invest in real estate when they have no cash in the bank. And they're like, well, we could buy this deal and do this and do that and do this. I'm like, just make the 100 and move on. Pay your debt off.
Yeah, 100%. Keep it simple. Also, too, another whole thing is like, if you buy a bunch of properties, you can get bogged down pretty quick mentally if you're not operating them right. And if you're just getting cash flow, and the cash flow is from brokerage, not actual properties, yeah, you might not own as much property, but you're getting a nice income that's just clean cut. Like once you do a deal, it's done and you get that money, move on. It's not like you have to keep managing it or keep whatever. Now, obviously there's the side of the business where you have to keep prospecting forever, which is why I'm sure you're investing and building your consulting business, why we're investing and doing other things.
But it's also the mindset of like, me also being a percentage owner in a deal versus 100% owner, so that I can have more time to put into the brokerage business, because that flows the whole business.
100%.
Yeah.
And that leads right into what I was kind of going to talk about next, is that, you're obviously very talented at lots of things, but you spend most of your time on specific things. And I'm sure you've identified what's the highest leverage. And we talk a lot about the principle of who, not how. And it sounds like you mentioned it in your investments. If I buy something in New Jersey, I make sure I partner with a qualified operator who knows how to manage. And you're not doing the day-to-day stuff. You just bring the money, which you have, and then the capital. Or sorry, that's the same thing. The capital and the deal. And so how do you kind of implement that across all of your businesses? Because they go hand in hand, right? Like what you have going on is not necessarily simple. You got a consulting business, brokerage, you're running deals, you're doing social media. Content, that in itself is a whole job. So like, how do you keep all of that simple, and how do you manage your time and everything you've got going on?
Yeah. So one thing I try to tell people is like, today, the businesses I run, the 3 companies I run, the consulting business, the brokerage business, the investment business, I will run for the next 50 years. Okay. Like I'm not starting a business to then, see how it goes. And if, blah, blah, blah. It's like, these are legacy businesses. I never want to sell the brokerage business. I never want to sell the investment company. I never want to sell the consulting business. These are just, I will keep them forever. Right. And I'm just going to build them as big as, as God is willing to let them grow to. Okay. And for me, it's like, and anybody else who's possibly looking to start businesses, I look at it from a perspective of, if I'm not going to do this for 20 years, I'm not starting it. Number one. Number two, it's not Henry anymore doing the majority of the work, right? Where like I do the main core, quote, leveraged activities, right? That, drive the most revenue bottom line, right? And I focus on those core activities, so that, the companies can continue to run, right? So, you take every company and you go like, what is the main drivers of this business? My brokerage business. Well, I still produce, by the way, right? I still, do deals. So I lead generate every day, a couple hours a day, nothing crazy, but I try to generate 1 or 2 or 3 leads a day. Number 2, right? I do my current team. I do talent development, right? So I spend time developing the talent that is currently on my team, right? Next piece is talent acquisition. I need to spend time looking for talent and acquiring the talent to bring them into the team, right? And then lastly, I'm negotiating deals, right? Where like, whether it's a 3-way call with my team member to negotiate deals that they're working on, or even my own deals. So those 4 activities in the brokerage business is really all I'm doing, right? And anything that I do during the day is really just, I'm either on a team meeting, doing team development, lead review to work towards all those things, right? Or those 4, that's it. That's all I do in the brokerage business, right? And then, the consulting business, it's like the consulting business does really well because I sell a lot of real estate, right? So it's like, I know to continue driving that home, one of those things is to continue spending a lot of time in the brokerage business doing those core activities, because the bigger I grow in the brokerage business, the better the consulting agency does, right? Next, it's also, I have a great operator for the that's why I partner with team leaders, by the way, right? The reason I partner with team leaders is that it's not all on Henry, right? So because when it's all on Henry, right, that's a problem. Right? Because when Henry's not, quote unquote, working for whatever decision I decide to make, right, or what I'm doing in that moment, if I'm not working on this business, that business isn't growing. So I partner with operators who are, who are talented individuals who can help grow, right? So as an example, so like, like the talent acquisition, I look for operators. I want to partner with an operator who wants to scale and build a team deep, right? In that specific market. So it's not just Henry trying to build it. I got a person who's running with me alongside me. So if I have, instead of, bringing on a team member who's not going to help me build, I only want to partner with operators, right? So all of a sudden, if I partner with 100 agents, the team's not going to grow much unless Henry moves the ship. But if I partner with 100 operators who all want to recruit and do business and grow massively, all of a sudden in 3 to 5 years of just letting the operators be operators, that company's going to be bigger than it was before. Same thing in my consulting business. I have someone who runs my consulting business on the day-to-day, right? And he runs it on a day-to-day. So even if Henry isn't working specifically in the consulting business continues, right? So one of the only other activities that I have in the consulting business besides producing, one is obviously I have hours that I have to spend on the trainings, right? Because we do many trainings throughout the month. And then number 2 is I get to record content, right? So I spend a little bit of time every single month batch recording content, right? Batch record as much as I can when I have specific time allocated, and I do that specific activity, right? So I batch record, and then my team handles everything else. I upload it to a Google Drive. It's done. I don't even need to think about it. It's posted. Everything's handled all automatically, okay? And then for the investment business, lastly, it's like all I do with the investment business is that I do really well in the brokerage business, number 1, because when we find good opportunities, I bring it to the investment team. We can review it, move forward or not. And then number 2 with the investment business is I spend time raising capital, right? So everything that I'm doing is the highest leverage activity that I can possibly be doing, and everything else is delegated. Now, obviously, guys, when you start something brand new, it's not going to be like that. But the difference is when you all of a sudden have a very successful brokerage business, as an example, you'll have capital where you can bring on a good operator day one, right? And I've also made the mistakes of partnering with terrible operators. Okay, I've made that mistake too, and I get to continue learning from that. I don't think I'm the best at it, and I continue to just try and find better and better operators, right? So I can stay focused on what makes me the most money on a day-to-day.
100%, yeah.
So you definitely focus heavily on the who, not how.
Yeah, and if I may too, you can combine a lot of those too. Probably my favorite content that I've consumed from you is just watching the YouTube videos of you calling. You're generating leads right there on a call, but you're also doing content. It's a live stream or it's a pre-recorded something that you made. But I learned a ton from that when I first started getting into commercial real estate. I listened to hours, honestly, of you just calling and
appreciate that.
Writing down the questions that you were asking. That for those that are new, that's a perfect place to start with Henry's content.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much. And it's everything that I do, and the reason why I have these 3 businesses is because they all fuel each other.
Exactly.
Right? They're all parallels. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, it's not like I'm going for people are just like, would you want to invest in this, technology business? Right? If it takes Henry time, absolutely not. Right? If I got to write a check, that's up to me if I want to make a decision or not to just let my money work for money. But, if it takes Henry time, no. Right? Because if I just focus on these 3 companies, it's really hard for me to not be incredibly wealthy over a multi-decade time period. But people just are not consistent enough on the right activities, right, over a long enough period of time to see that kind of result, right? They get bored. They start, getting distracted, right? They spend too much money on stupid shit,
100%.
It happens all the time.
100%.
Yeah. The key thing that you said there was multi-decade. It'd be hard to lose. We were talking about, Graham and I, the properties we've already bought. We haven't even bought that many. If we just didn't buy any more properties, we'd have 3-4 paid for properties in 20 years and have all kinds of cash flow, And people just don't have that mentality though. Like, you have to understand that commercial real estate is a long game. It's not going to happen tomorrow. You're not going to wholesale deal it tomorrow, but you do have to realize that in 90 days in brokerage, even in investing too, your life could change in 90 days, any day. So
yeah, imagine if you only grew by 20% a year, even 10% a year, every year for 30 years.
Yeah.
Right? All of a sudden, you're 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, and you're worth an insane amount of money. You make an insane amount of money. You have a ton of real estate. It's not complicated, but most people they're like, I've been doing this for 3 years and I only make $200,000 a year. I'm a complete failure. It's time to give up. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
100%. It's easy to fall in that mindset for sure. It's like when I first joined the last firm I was at, there was a bunch of older guys, all great brokers, and they're all like, every single one of their advice was just like, just hang in there. Just takes time. Just keep doing what you're doing, but just don't quit. Like, that's the biggest thing. Hang in there and keep doing what you're doing. Now, obviously, there's things you could make mistakes on and pivot, but like, over the course of time, I love what you're saying. If you just keep doing what you're supposed to do, the consistency, whether it's the cold call, making the posts, whatever it is, over a long period of time, making offers, if you do that for 5 years straight, it's like,
Here's the truth about learning commercial real estate. You can figure it out alone and it be painful, or you can learn from people who have already done it and it be so much less painful. Slava said it best. It's really just watching the people that came before us. They're open, they share how they do it, and we replicate their success. Danny told me this: Commercial Academy is my number one source of off-market deals. I just say I'm looking and deals start coming my way. That's the power of being in the room, knowing the right people and having the right network. Commercial Academy Live, Orlando, January 30th through February 1st, 2026. 3 days to learn from operators who have already done the deals. And it's 3 days to build a network that becomes your advantage. Text Blueprint to 888-653-1199 for an exclusive discount. I am telling all of my friends to come to this that are even on the fence about joining and being in commercial real estate. If you're already in commercial real estate, you 100% have to be there. See you there.
Come back and see if you've made progress or not. I guarantee you will. And I love that.
Yeah, it's really just being like I think one of my superpowers, if I have to think of one, is I'm just really good at being okay with doing mundane, boring tasks for longer and staying more consistent than other people. I'm just willing to do I don't care. My wife thinks my wife is very adventurous, and we have conversations a lot where she's like, "You're not very adventurous," because she likes having fun. I'm like, my life, and I've said this to her many times, and she knows this, my life will be a sacrifice for the generations to come. I might not have the most fun life, like everything that you guys see on social media that looks fun, it's because my wife decided to do it, okay? I'm just there, I'm just attending the event, right? But it's, I'm doing it because I want to change the bloodline, right? I want to change my family's last name for generations to come. And that will only happen because I decided to take 60 years of my life and dedicate it to a craft that I know, just like we talked about, over a multi-decade period of time, it's impossible for me not to see major results, right? The problem is that most people have never met somebody who's really where they could be. Like, I have a friend of mine who's a billionaire, and I spent a lot of time with him. We were very close friends. I was just in Europe with him last year for a week. We, comes over for dinner. I go to their house for dinner. Like, we're very close. And it's amazing to see the lifestyle that he has. Now he's almost 80 years old. Okay. And he's been doing investment. He does in commercial real estate. He has a lot of investments. And it's like, this guy has just done the simple thing for 58 years. 58 years straight of just investing in good opportunities and doing 1031s and buying deals and selling deals and finding more deals and partnerships. It's like, it's not that complicated, right? But everyone complicates the crap out of it, right? It's just like, do something for 60 years straight and try to be incredibly broke, right? Like, it's just hard. It's hard to be broke when you're spending 60 years on investment commercial real estate, right? But you try to cram 60 years in 3 years, yeah, you're probably not going to be where you want to be. And then it's going to beat yourself up. You're going to beat yourself up and you're going to fall out of the industry.
100%.
Right?
100%. Another cool thing too, a lot of the times, is that it's exponential. Like, once you get into a certain point, it starts to just take off, especially with, wealth and investing and stuff. I think it was Todd Napola we had on the podcast, which I'm sure you're familiar with him. He's in South Florida. Yep. He's like, give it 5 years for your cash flow. And then after 5 years of being in commercial real estate, you'll really start to see some cash flow, which is it's a good perspective to have.
100%. Todd's a great guy, and I love his content. I actually interviewed him on my podcast a long time ago.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, same kind of mentality. And the guy, he's been investing in real estate for decades.
Yeah,
100%. It's one of these things where, if you are just disciplined enough or more disciplined, and it's funny because because I'm in the consulting world so heavily, I get to meet so many real estate agents and see what they do on a regular basis. I'm telling you right now, the majority of your competition sucks.
For sure.
They suck. Mm-hmm. They're not consistent. They don't generate leads regularly. They're not getting deals under contract regularly, right? Like, your competition is literally like the only people who are really doing any business is the 0.1% of 1%, right? It's not even the 1% because, everyone says they're in the 1% of realtors nationwide. Everyone says that. You sell 2 properties, you're in the 1% of, agents nationwide, right? The 0.1% are doing all the business, right? So it's like, that's it. If you're just consistent over a decade period of time, you are better than 99% of other people, right, in this industry.
That's so true. Yeah, that's so true. I think it's like Andy Elliott who talks about it being amateur hour right now. I feel like that's very true.
It's so true, man.
It's so true that, like, Yeah, even in college, not colleagues that are our company, but colleagues that I witnessed in the market, it's like I can name maybe like one or two at another company that are actually making cold calls like consistently, and even within
Doing the calls consistently doesn't mean much.
What'd you say?
It's like just because you're making the calls doesn't mean much.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
That's just the first barrier. Like it's even if they're calling at all, and then if they are calling at all, like you said, they could have a terrible script or not know what to say or whatever it may be. Because I catch myself thinking that like, oh, and I got to make my cold calls, and I'm like, oh well, they've probably somebody's already called this probably, and it's like, even if they have, you might call them, have a better
Every
pitch.
single person has been called before.
100%.
It's an insane theory to think that like you need to be number one in order to do business with them.
100%. I agree. That's so, it's consistent over the long game. And I think that's another thing you've done so well, obviously, with your content. Yeah. Like, how long have you been posting on YouTube for?
4 or 5 years. 5 years.
4 or 5 years. And how many subs are you at, do you think?
20 and change.
That's incredible. Yeah, that's amazing. I think I've been posting like our podcast specifically a little over a year, and we're like 1,300 subscribers. But that is just that alone. It's all, it's
I understand. Like I've posted, I mean, I don't know if it's 2,000 or 3,000 videos.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the exact number. I think, let me go to my YouTube channel for a second. 2,000 or 3,000 videos, guys. Like this is why like most people don't ever make any money because they think they posted 22 videos and they're like, why haven't I seen a result yet? Right? It's 2.3 thousand videos.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, that I think I agree 100%. It's just so it's hard. Like, we've done like 1,300 subs, and I think we're at like close to 1,000 videos, but it's, a lot of those include shorts, but just that kind of thing.
Telling you what happened to us. We were at 4,000 subscribers or something like that, 3,000. And we had one video get us 10,000 subscribers. One video.
Jeez. That's amazing.
But it's like, it's random. It's random. We haven't had a video since do that. But everyone's like, it's like, stop thinking about it from the lens of how many subs you have, how many views you get, and all this different types of stuff. It's just do good work consistently enough, and it's impossible to not be known, right? It's like the reason why people know who Joe Rogan is also, it's like, keep in mind, like the guy he's at like episode 2,500 on his podcast. No one knew who he was on podcast 1 through 25, 30, 100. I mean, not to the extent he's known now. I mean, obviously people knew him because of whatever his background is, but most podcasts don't ever turn into something until after 100, 200 episodes.
It's true.
And that's just the podcast. Everything is the same. Mm-hmm. Right? It's all the same kind of mindset. It's like, it's like, how can I do this for long enough until a result happens is the mindset you must have. It's like going to the gym. I don't go to the gym because, it's like anymore. And for many years, like at the very beginning, you go because you want to be a certain weight or you want to look a certain way. But realistically, you go to the gym now because I want to be fit till I have enough energy to crush it for freaking 16 hours a day, right? So it's not I need to go to the gym to look a kind of way. Like I've had a six pack forever. Like it's just my metabolism. It's not because of whatever. I don't think I eat that well. If you ask my wife, I eat terribly, right? But it's like I go to the gym because of the energy I need. So I go to the gym until I get it's like do it until a result occurs, right? So it's like I just get to go to the gym every day for the next 60 years. It's like it's not because I need to be jacked or any of that kind of stuff. It's like I just do it because I want to be healthy, right? And healthy does not happen because you went a month every day. Mm-hmm. It's a lifestyle. Just like real estate. It's a lifestyle. I make my calls Monday through Friday, and if I miss today, I get to double tomorrow. Consistently. And you just do it forever. Until you have $1 million+ in your checking account, or until you have enough real estate that pays you $25,000 a month in cash flow, right? Whatever it is, you just do it until the result occurs. It's like, oh, how many leads should I get today? What kind of dumb question is that? As many as you possibly can every day forever until you have enough money to do what you want.
Yep. 100%. 100%. I love that. I want to be cognizant of your time because I know you're a busy guy. I know since the last time we had the podcast, you've had a lot of cool personal things happen. So you got married, right? Relatively recently, right?
Yeah. Year and a half ago. So I guess, about 2 years ago when we had the podcast, I was still engaged. Time
flies. Goodness gracious. I feel like I just saw you posting about that. That's crazy. But yeah, and congratulations on that. That's huge. And then, you obviously seem like you're doing really cool stuff in South Florida. If I remember right, you just got a couple cool cars too. Jesse's a big car guy.
Yes. The cars are nice.
You got something for your wife.
It's
and
very, very grateful for what real estate can provide, and also a bonus depreciation is nice.
Yeah, for sure. Was that Jesse? You probably know what.
He
What
bought a
was,
C8, I believe. You bought a C8 Corvette. It was blue.
That was many years ago.
I was gonna say you've had that.
Yeah, and then I got a Bentley.
That's what it was. Yeah,
Oh, nice.
that's sick.
Yeah, I
So
got a
was
flying
mostly a tax decision, or was that both?
I knew it. I was trying to close on a couple deals before the end of the year, and I noticed by like November it probably wasn't going to happen. So I just needed I was going to buy my wife anyways a new car because that was on the plan always. But for myself, I was like, I would only do it if it was a tax deduction. So that's why I only had so many options. It was either a Rolls Royce or this, and I'm like, I'm also a conservative guy. I don't really care. It's not just enough from the car perspective. Like I could have spent $400,000 on a car and the payment wouldn't have been. It is what it is. But it's like for me, I'm like to spend any more money than I do even on my cars is absolutely just stupid. I want to buy more real estate so that I can buy more stupid shit.
Yeah, 100%.
That's the whole rich dad poor dad mentality.
Exactly.
Did you buy what did you buy? A Continental? Or did you buy
the Flying Spur?
Flying Spur? Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll send you. Do a group text. I'll send you guys a video.
Okay, sick.
Yeah. Next time you guys are in Florida, I'll pick you guys up.
Okay.
That'd be awesome. Well, thank you so much, Henry. If people want to reach out to you, whether it's about brokerage opportunities or whether it's about consulting opportunities, what's the best place for them to do it?
Yeah, I'd say DM me on Instagram at Henry Eisenstein. Obviously reach out on YouTube and check out it in the descriptions. We have some amazing stuff coming up. I do a monthly virtual free workshop, so they can always check it out. There's lots of free cool trainings that we do each and every single month, and I'm actually hosting my first ever live event in March. So it's called Expansion. And we're going to be hosting now. We might do it as two events a year. But now we're going to be hosting my first ever live event in Miami. So I'd love to obviously have both of you guys there. And we're, looking to, fill up the event. We already sold like 30 out of the 100 total tickets we can sell. So if you're interested in joining us at Expansion, check out any one of the links in the description of YouTube on my channel. You'd be able to get a ticket. But and we'll give any one of the people who comes from this, any one of your subscribers, I'll give them a discounted executive ticket if they want.
Okay, awesome.
Cool.
Well, we'll try to we'll put some link to it or something in the description. That way they can do it. We'll figure it out afterwards. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Everybody's watching you, so you're inspiring to me. I've been watching you over the years. You've had so much success, and I think you're just doing great. So we really appreciate you and your big inspiration. And just thank you.
Man. Well, look, I appreciate you both. Thank you for having me. It means the world.
Henry.
Absolutely awesome.